And welcome back to Rebuild Projects. Thank you so much for joining me again. So this episode, I'm going to update you on all of the little projects that I've been doing over the last 2 weeks to get this boat in the water. As well, I'd like to give you some tips on how I upholstered the boat seats so that you can upholster your boat seats and save a little bit of time. So let's get to it and have some fun.
You're watching Rebuild Projects.
One of the projects we did was unwrapping all the cleats, giving them a little cleanup, and they've turned out amazing. Because these cleats didn't have a top mounting feature on them where I could screw a screw down into them, they actually have these long bolts that you have to put nuts on. Early on, when I was building this top gunnel, which I made out of a composite board, really quite thick, 1 inch thick, I decided that I was going to, drill through them, embed them into the side of the gunnel here. And because this is all foamed up with expanding foam, I knew I was never going to be able to get back to them. So over the last little bit, I've covered them in painter's tape. And then as I was fiberglassing, I was always putting a lot of attention into making sure the connection point here got fiberglassed and sanded. Even through the painting process, I did some gel coating, and I just wanted to make sure that no water could get down in there and delaminate anything. So a few rounds of fiberglass, a bunch of Sika Flex caulking, then more painting. I finally took all of the painter's tape off, and then I think it's turned out really well. I've got a finish that if any water will collect behind here on the gunnel, it'll go down, shed through, and I don't think it's going to get through there for years and years and years. Well, this is a little project that it doesn't seem like much, but it really helps everything move forward. It's just a rectangular hatch that is going to house the capstan motor. So the capstan motor sits in there, a little raised off of the bottom here. The capstan bell itself will live right around here, which will aid in pulling up the anchor and eventually the prawn puller. What I decided to do was push it up as high as I could, giving me about a 1/4 inch gap here. You don't see the gap from the outer flange, so it doesn't look like there's a gap. But when I put the caulking around it, I did it on 3 sides, and then I only screwed in screws on the top and 2 sides here, leaving the screws out of the bottom. And because it's raised enough, if any water does get in there, I don't want it to because of the electrics, but if it does get in there, these will act as hopefully like little weeping holes that will allow water to shed out or eventually get out. So that's the thought behind that. But a small little project like this really helps with moving things forward. And now I can get that capstan motor and the electrics installed real soon. In the back stern area, a lot of little projects have come together over the last 2 weeks that have made it what I think is a really nice look. Some of the projects are the hardware for the lids to these 2 transom boxes. So I finally put those in, put the gasket around the inner part of the lid, and I like how these stainless steel hinges with the pin that I can slide out to take the lid off have turned out. It's not only very serviceable, but it's kind of got that industrial feel, and I feel like, if I had to take this off to do any work or get in there, it's going to be super simple. Now, just below that, I have these 2 handles. I've actually got a few more of these handles that I'm going to put in specific places, but essentially these are so good for, grab handles to get yourself either out of the water or just say if I'm working on an outboard, I have something to hold on to while I may be leaning over and working around a cowling or whatnot. So I got these bolted through the fiberglass with some big washers behind, and I like how that's turned out. On the top of the gunnels and the boxes, the transom boxes, I consider those are going to be really high wear areas. So I wanted to kind of finish them off with something really durable. Now, in the past, I've used a combination of gel coat and pumice to make a non-skid on different areas, and I've had moderate success. I've just never been able personally to get a good application of the pumice with the combination of the gel coat. First off, to last, it always wears prematurely, or it gets dirty really easy and it's very hard to clean. So I kind of said no to that on this project. Another option that I had was, just taking the EVA foam floor, because I have quite a bit left over, and finishing the gunnel tops and the boxes, because I see that it's very popular right now on boats. But I think it might be too much. So what's that saying? Gilding the lily. Too much of the EVA foam is too much for me. It narrowed my options down though, until I remembered that about a year ago in my back alley, I took apart a treadmill that one of my neighbors was getting rid of, and I decided to, scavenge it and pull off the motor, the electronics for another project that I had, another idea. And in doing so, I kept the tread. Yeah, I guess it's the tread of the treadmill. And it's quite a cool little product. So this is just a chunk of it. There was about 8 feet long, so 4 feet that got doubled over. But the construction of it is kind of neat. It's this kind of very grippy. Well, you've been on a treadmill. Very grippy on the top. It's kind of belted, almost like a tire, where there's a fabric that has these nylon strips in it. So I guess so that it doesn't tear that easy. But being a fabric backing, I thought it would be a great candidate for contact cement. So much like I did the foam floor, I treated the gunnels and the top of the boxes just like I prepped the floor. So I sanded it, I cleaned it, I wiped it down in acetone, and then I put contact cement on this side and that side. Well, first I cut it to the shape I wanted, and then I laid it down, I rolled it out, I secured it down, and then I went one step further, which I'm doing on anything that's EVA foam or this stuff, where I come around with Sikaflex and I just do a border around the sides. And the reason I do that is because I really feel like, any of your contact cemented applications are going to fail from the sides. That's where salt water or whatever gets in and then starts delaminating it. But if you just do this little step, it's going to keep water from getting under there, and I think it's going to last a lot longer. So of course I'm going to be able to come back and paint this and get it as tight as I can to the sides and make it look a little prettier. I'll do that all over the place, but I think this is a really good application of like a found item where you can put it on your boat. So save yourself those treadmills, guys, and it should last way longer than non-skid or EVA foam. So whether I'm doing some diving or I'm putting tools down or whatever it may be, just having that transition point that's gonna really last, whether you're getting off of the dock and got to get down, I think this is gonna be a winner. Now this is a small project, but it has a big knock-on effect. The acrylic dash looks great. I cut underneath it quite a big hole so that I can get all the wiring and the gauges and all the electronics in there. Now, it seems like the hole is a little excessive, which it may be, but I think I needed it that size for the long ease of being able to, work on stuff. How do I keep water out of getting to the cuddy cabin? I had to come up with a creative solution, and I decided that between installing this curb that I made, so this is an 1.25 inch composite board that has been cut and installed to the shape of the acrylic dash. It's been screwed, caulked, and painted, and that is going to be helpful in keeping any of the water that gets on the bow deck and diverting it down here and hopefully into this gutter, and on this side here and down the gunnels. Now the weakest link are these areas here, and it would have been very easy, and it is still an option for me to just run a big bead of Sikaflex and then bed the whole thing down and then pretty much never take the acrylic dash off, but I do want to be able to service any of the electronics. And of course I could service it inside the cuddy cabin, but it'd be so much nicer to be able to give myself a little bit of extra slack in the wiring and have a kickstand or whatnot, and be able to get to all the electronics from here up on the deck instead of having to be on my back in there. But in doing that, you have to figure out a way of keeping that water out without the caulking. So what I came up with was double gaskets. So these are just car door gaskets. They're kind of shaped like a D, so then once they're compressed, they make a seal. I've doubled them up here in the attempt that when I install the acrylic dash, which will sit nice and snug around the curb here and get fastened in, and then when I put my fasteners or my bolts in through the bottom here of the acrylic, it's going to compress everything, put a downward force on it, and then activate those gaskets, and then hopefully create a nice seal. I'm going to do a water test here pretty soon and just pour, a gallon of water and see where it all lies at the end of the day. But worst case scenario is I have to run a big bead of black Sikaflex under it and make it more of a permanent installation. Hopefully not, but either way, I've addressed it, so now I can move forward next week with installing all the electronics. And then there's the EVA foam floor. So I really like how this has turned out for me. This is a second test, or a first test, however you want to look at it. But basically I did the cuddy cabin and I loved how I did the border. I think it turned out really well, so I wanted to try it again for the outdoor application. And because it's more of a harsher environment out in the elements, I decided to mix up how I went by doing it. The final result is just a really nice looking product, I think, and it gave me enough confidence to know that I could do it on the main cockpit sole or floor. So that's what this test was all about.
In a world where all boats have been sadly neglected, one handsome and humble man bestowed with the talent to rebuild anything. Only armed with a powerful upholstery stapler and compressor can he rise to the unimaginable challenge. Can he save the planet? Can he save his passengers' posteriors from the worst pain and soreness ever experienced on a boat? Trusted tools by his side, he will take on any curve, any pleat, and any pucker. It will not be easy, but he will use his sharpest kitchen knife, Excalibur, to guide him to the victory. No thickness of foam or cloth will deter him. Even the world's dullest scissors will not stop this hero from completing his mission. May Odin bless him with the strength of Thor's mighty hammer, so that he can beat off all the evil, ungodly, vile barbarians that wish him to fail. He shall take these tushy tablets, handed to him by Moses himself, and festoon them with the finest foam and Corinthian leather. In the end, a destiny will be fulfilled, and a legend will be born.
Can you hear the thunder? Can you feel it rise? Strike like lightning, fire in your eyes. Down to this moment, all of your life. One shot for glory, cuts like a knife. Now your time has come. can stop this. Countdown's begun. It's undeniable.
3, 2, 1.
Now your time has come, and there can only be one. You were born a legend. Now your time has come, and there can only be one. You were born a legend.
All right, so it's been overnight. Our seats are dry, all 6 of them, so that worked out pretty well. I like this truck bed liner. It's dried really kind of quite hard. It dried to a point where, I don't think water is going to be able to wick up. And that helps because, by the time I got to my 6th seat is where a pro would probably still have enough fortitude to keep going, but I just got sloppy with cutting, and it left more fabric could get wet. But overall, the fabric is saturated with the truck bed liner, the wood is coated, so at least it gives an extra little bit of moisture, water resistance. Now, we want to clean up the back. I've dug into some of the remnants of marine vinyl I have, and I've got this black stuff. It's quite thick, so I think it's going to be enough. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut out the shape here, and we want to cut it out so that it's quite accurate and that it's going to hide the 1,000 staples that I put underneath there. It's also going to hide all of that truck bed liner. So we'll round the corners and we'll get these all cut out.
Like a phoenix rising higher than the sun, destined for glory, the game is won. No one can stop this. Countdown's begun. It's undeniable.
3, 2, 1.
Now your time has come, and there can only be one. You were born a legend. Now your time has come, and there can only be one. You were born a legend.
Future me hopefully will have figured out all of the editing issues that I'm sure I'm going to have, because I just realized that my plug in the jack and the plug has not been fully seated for the last day. So all that footage is, yeah. Anyways, future me has probably figured it out, and then you'll know that by now. And if so, hopefully I've come up with something awesome. But thank you for sticking with me to the end. If you are, I appreciate it. Next episode, well, I want to get some finalized smaller projects done. The anchoring system, so that's the bow roller, the capstan, all the rope, and the anchor. I want to get that all finalized. So we're going to work on that. And then when we're up there, we might as well get the bow railing not only drilled but bedded down. It's going to require getting into the cuddy cabin and doing stuff from inside, but we'll get that finalized, as well as the grab rails in the back. But the one thing that I really got to do, and it is being bugging me, it's been bugging me at night right before I go to bed. I know that the old trailer is not really up to snuff. I mean, the frame itself is perfectly robust, but because it's a single axle trailer and where that single axle was placed, combined with the new proportions of the boat and the weight, I think this is going to be really tongue heavy. And God forbid I'm on the highway going wherever I need to go and the yoke and the tongue kind of, bend, snap, give way, that would be really scary. So I need to get the boat out into the sunlight, hooked up to the truck. I need to go around my neighborhood with it, take it over some pretty good bumps, and just get a good understanding of, how tongue heavy it is. I know, you're going to say, buy a new trailer. I just don't have the 6, 7, 10 grand that it's going to cost. So I put a lot of work into this one. I think there's enough straight edge of the trailer before it starts curving into the yoke that I've got another foot of adjustment, maybe 1.5 feet. But I'm going to combine that with turning it from a single axle into a double axle trailer. I've got some ideas, and by doing that it should shift the balance point and just create a little bit more of a stable, non-tongue heavy ride. I want to thank you very much once again, and I can't wait to see you next episode at Rebuild Projects.